Hey everybody, my name is Matt LeBaron. I'm founder of Revvim. Welcome to another Workshop Wednesday where we tear down digital marketing problems and build out real-world solutions. As you can probably tell, we're trying out a different format today. We're calling this Between Two Cars. And I've got my partner in crime with me, Steve Marshall. Say hi, Steve.
Hello.
And so Steve had some questions. Steve, why don't you take us into what you're thinking about here?
Last time I saw you, you were rolling out of here in a steamroller. What's up with that?
That was your idea, Steve. The entire purpose for that was to set up this episode on flattening.
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 So flattening, let's talk about that.
Flattening. So essentially what flattening is, it's taking that complex dynamic web serving system and having all that process run to create a page up front and then turning it into a static HTML file and serving that static HTML file to the end user.
So we're looking at something like Joomla or WordPress or Adobe Experience Manager if you want to spend some money. These things out there, for every time I'm hitting a web page, that thing's having to go out and figure out whatever scripts are out there to fulfill my needs to render that page experience.
And that takes seconds. I mean, we oftentimes are seeing, especially on enterprise sites, sometimes page load times of 6, 7, or even 8 seconds. And that's especially troublesome with mobile devices. With this push to mobile first, speed is becoming more and more important. So you either have to restructure your entire website, maybe try to code it for AMP, accelerated mobile pages or something like that, or you've got to maybe change your workflows around. There's all sorts of things that could be done. But the benefit with flattening is that you can achieve actually the theoretical fastest page in the world because you're serving static HTML. There's nothing faster than serving static HTML. And you can do that without having to change your entire website. This is something that you can add on to your existing website. We do it here at Revvim for usually our enterprise customers, usually publicly traded large enterprises or companies that are in the security space because of the security benefits of flattening. And they're able to do this without having to rewrite everything, without having to continually invest and reinvest in faster software, and without having to change their content creation and editing workflows.
So instead of having to chase down these things that I'm seeing loading like through Firebug, looking at all these individual sequences of events being called, chasing those things down, trying to cache each one of those little things and clean up, my CSS. The big win here is just taking all of that off the web server, presenting that into a static HTML format and pushing that up to the web server. Yeah,
so we're able to take certainly all the server-side calls and all of the database calls and things like that, and we essentially eliminate them. They no longer take place as part of a user request, and so the milliseconds and seconds that would be consumed in that are just eliminated from the page load time.
So now, if we're talking going from a traditional, let's say we had an 8-second load time on average, what can this flattening methodology bring that down to?
We've done this with Revvim customers, and we've seen websites that were loading in, on average, 6 to 8 seconds. After flattening, they load in less than 2. That's pretty standard. In fact, we even had a customer of ours that included an incentive clause in our contract. They wanted to make sure that this technology delivered what it needed to and what they needed it to, such that we essentially signed up to deliver 3 times a faster delivery of pages. And if we did that, we would receive a bonus. And we hit that. And we did receive that bonus because this is so effective at delivering performance.
So everybody's talking about caching.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this seems to be hot topic the last 18 months I've seen at least, right? Everybody's in this sort of cold war for site speed.
Yeah.
What's the difference between this and just caching certain elements?
That's a great question. People oftentimes confuse caching with flattening because they're very, very similar in a lot of ways. But the big difference is that when you have a plugin that does caching, for example, for WordPress or another CMS, the initial call that goes into your web server still goes into that web server's engine, like the WordPress engine itself. And that engine has to make a decision as to whether or not there is a piece of cached content that it can grab and serve, or whether it needs to go and dynamically build that right then and there. And so that causes 2 things to happen. One, it takes time to make that decision. So because it's going through that engine, say WordPress or whatever CMS, then that's going to slow things down. It introduces latency that doesn't exist from a call that is served directly by static HTML. The other thing that happens is around security. Now, we haven't talked a lot about security here, but flattening is huge for making your website much less vulnerable to being attacked, hacked, defaced, etc. Because that call for a cached server or for cached content still goes through that server is still going to have whatever vulnerabilities it may have. And oftentimes it's not just the actual CMS itself, but the plugins of the CMS. And so if there's let's say you're running WordPress with a caching plugin, WordPress is going to field that request, determine whether or not to offer that cached content to the user, and that content itself, or that call itself, may result in a vulnerability being exploited. When you're serving flattened content, where a call goes into to literally just deliver a flattened HTML file, that security vulnerability is entirely eliminated.
So you've effectively taken WordPress or Joomla, whatever CMS we want to use for the example here. You've taken it off the web server. You've put it behind a firewall, so it's effectively just a website building tool.
Yep.
However, with all the dynamic functionality that marketing teams and content teams need to keep the internal linking structures updated and the functionality that something like WordPress and its plugins
Absolutely
enable.
right. And that's the great thing about flattening, is that it doesn't require the content creators or editors or managers to change anything that they're doing. In fact, the fact that we're moving to a flattened system doesn't even impact them at all. They continue working in the CMS of choice, using the tools they want to use, and they're able to do that without the downsides of a CMS that's hosting the files. It's actually taking those requests. So that server exists and resides behind the firewall. It publishes just like it does right now, but only to an internal website, again, behind the firewall. That internal website is then the source of content to then be flattened into static HTML files that are posted outside the firewall for the rest of the world to consume. So by doing this, we get the best of both worlds, where we have a fast, again, as fast as is theoretically possible. We eliminate all of the security vulnerabilities of dynamically served code and content, and we keep our content creators, editors, managers happy because they're working in the environment that they've chosen.
So it sounds like the best of both worlds, right? I mean, this is no more having to worry about some Joomla security vulnerability where I've got to go update the system, and my plugins aren't ready yet, and I'm basically going to either make that choice to update my site to hopefully prevent a security breach taking my entire site offline, or wiping out certain functionality, or God forbid, even my URL rewrite plugin.
Right, right. I know what you're referencing. You and I together experienced that with one of our customers.
That was on Christmas. Yeah.
On Christmas. Was that a good Christmas for you?
The best of times and the worst of times. Yeah.
So absolutely right. So the great thing about this is that, just to compare with what the situation is right now, if there is a vulnerability discovered in say, let's use WordPress as an example because it's so popular, or one of WordPress's plugins, now you've got IT scrambling to install a fix. But the installation of that fix may not play well with the other plugins that you're using, and especially if the vulnerability...
They usually don't when they're that fast and it's an emergency.
It seems like the case. They're certainly not well tested, right? But you've got to do that to keep your site safe. And so that creates this constant surge of panic and difficult choices to be made. In the situation that you referenced earlier, if I recall properly, there was a vulnerability that required an immediate update, and that immediate update destroyed the Yoast plugin for that website, right? And it took out all of your redirects and completely hosed your SEO for a time.
That's right. But yeah, we either had the choice of let the site have a security vulnerability, which is unacceptable for a security company,
Yep.
or wipe out every single page on the
Painful.
website other than the homepage.
Painful.
Needless to say, it's hard to meet your SEO goals when you're doing those kinds of things. But
Yep. And so the great thing about having a flattened website where you're still using that CMS and publishing internally and behind your firewall is that you never really need to update your CMS again, because certainly not because of a vulnerability
yeah, it's really no different than having Dreamweaver the way we had back in the day, building your website for you, however, with all the new functionality and capabilities that these new CMSs have.
Yep. Or front page.
Front page.
Yep.
I'm a little, I guess, a fan of Adobe products still.
Or Notepad. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. But the other cool thing about that is that now the content creators can introduce plugins to their CMS that might not have gone through the security review, because it doesn't need to. They can now
right.
they can now customize that content creation, editing, and managing environment any way they want to, without having to make sure that every single plugin plays well with the others. And because if something doesn't work right, they can just uninstall.
So not only are we saving the time of these underpaid IT professionals, as you mentioned, but we're saving the time of InfoSec, not having to review every single
Absolutely.
thing. We're getting marketing what they need.
Yep.
So they can deliver the message they want to when they want to.
Right.
And
the content creators win, 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 win. It's like everybody wins here.
and
right?
you get to have Christmas.
And you get to have Christmas. Exactly. So as far as I can tell, there's almost no reason that a website shouldn't implement a secure flattening solution like the one that Revvim has built. We have this whole proprietary system, as you know, that we provide to our customers. And it works well with release cycles and things like that.
So not only with WordPress, but it works for any CMS.
Any
as far
CMS,
as I
yeah,
understand,
we actually can securely flatten any website, and it's
so
pretty
effectively
powerful.
you have that CMS living in your dev environment, is what it amounts to.
Right.
It flattens and publishes into either within that dev environment or to staging, where it can be QA'd and all of your regular processes can still fall in there with larger companies. And then that gets pushed to production as nice, clean HTML.
Nice, clean HTML. Your core workflows really don't have to change, certainly around content editing and management, and you get all these great benefits. And I love the fact that you just are no longer in the rat race of trying to keep up with the Joneses and whatever they're doing with their technology. If you've got this website that's being served as flattened HTML, then you've essentially you're at the end. You've already gone through the finish line. There is nothing faster than that. And so you don't have to go back and revisit it over and over again.
So let's say I'm an underpaid IT guy. What should I be doing?
You should ask your boss for a raise, number one.
I'm just trying to get Christmas back.
Okay, well, you want it Christmas back. Yeah, obviously reach out to us, talk to us, because we can make your life a lot easier. If anybody out there knows those underpaid IT folks that are trying to keep their website up and running and the page load speed fast, definitely forward this video on to them. Do them a favor and let them hear this conversation and perhaps take some action around it. Is that it, Steve? Are we there?
I don't know, Matt. Thank you for being here in the shop again today. It's always great to have you.
Thank you so much. You made me come out here. You realize
that's
that?
right. It was my idea, wasn't it?
It was your idea. Yeah, again, awkward.
Beer assistant.
Thanks. All right, take care, everybody. Cheers.